The truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface, a grim reality that lurks beneath the facade of existence. This isn't merely a glimmer of hope. It's a dark law etched into the very essence of our world. For narcissists, this truth is not just unavoidable. It is a chilling necessity. They flourish in shadows, their entire identity a meticulously crafted illusion, a grandiose self-portrait that conceals profound insecurities. They weave a narrative that casts them as either the valiant hero or the tormented victim, ensnaring others in a web of manipulation that keeps them firmly in control. Yet, the harsh reality is that the truth cannot be twisted indefinitely. You may suppress it for a while, distort it, or divert attention away from it, but you cannot obliterate it. Eventually, the dark hand of fate ensures that what is concealed will emerge from the depths. This principle echoes through the ages, as seen in Scripture. In Luke 8:17, Jesus warns, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." This is not merely a caution. It is an ominous certainty. It reveals that deception is a fleeting shadow, and for a narcissist whose very survival hinges on maintaining their illusion, the consequences are catastrophic. They may manipulate and gaslight those around them for a time, twisting reality to their will, but ultimately, the truth will erupt like a dark storm. And when it does, the collapse is nothing short of apocalyptic. Picture a house built on sand, teetering on the brink of destruction. From afar, it may seem formidable. It might even eclipse a fortress hewn from stone, towering, majestic, and seemingly impervious. Yet beneath the surface lies a fragile foundation, and when the tempest strikes, it crumbles into dust. This is the fate of those who construct their lives upon lies, hubris, and a distorted reality. The storm is not sent by God out of malice, but rather as a harbinger of truth that must emerge from the shadows. Reflect on the tale of King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. Here was a man at the zenith of his power, ensnared by his own delusions of grandeur. He believed himself invincible, a deity among mortals. But God brought him low, not through an adversary, but by shattering the veil of his self-deception. Reduced to a state of madness, he was cast out to roam like a beast, stripped of all that upheld his inflated ego. Only when he recognized the true source of power, God himself, was he restored. This is the divine mechanism at work. God allows the narcissist to be unmasked, to confront the grim reality they so fervently evade, not out of cruelty, but because only truth can serve as a solid ground for anything genuine to endure. Now, let's delve into a more personal dimension. If you've ever encountered a narcissist, you understand the torment of witnessing them evade consequences that would obliterate an honest soul. They weave their webs of deceit, and the unsuspecting fall prey to their charm. The darkness of their manipulation is a chilling reminder of the fragility of truth in a world where illusions. They portray themselves as victims, prompting others to come to their aid. It can seem as though justice is perpetually out of reach, and that the truth will never prevail. However, it's important to recognize that patience is essential. The truth may not surface right away, but it will eventually come to light. Why is that? Because maintaining a deception requires ongoing effort. A lie cannot sustain itself. It needs to be defended, bolstered, and expanded with additional falsehoods. The larger the lie, the more delicate it becomes. Over time, the burden of deceit grows heavier, and ultimately, it crumbles under its own untenable weight. This is why many narcissists, even those who appear to be thriving, often end up losing everything. They overreach, become convinced of their own fabrications, act recklessly, and eventually face exposure. When the truth does break through, it often does so in unexpected ways. It might emerge from someone they underestimated, someone they believed they had complete control over. It could arise from situations beyond their control, leading to revelations they never anticipated. Their own arrogance may also drive them to take risks that dismantle their entire facade. In one way or another, the divine hand ensures that their fabrications cannot endure forever. Here lies the chilling truth. When this reckoning arrives, it transcends their mere collapse. It heralds the resurgence of reality. Each time a narcissist spins their web of deceit, they warp the very fabric of existence, sowing chaos, fracturing bonds, eroding trust, and leading the unsuspecting into darkness. Thus, when the divine unveils their treachery, it serves not only their reckoning, but also the healing of those they have ensnared. The truth is a relentless force. It purges the taint of lies, restores the shattered order, and reclaims justice from the abyss. This is why it must emerge from the shadows. If you find yourself ensnared by a narcissist, witnessing their manipulations and falsehoods go unpunished, if the burden of injustice weighs heavily upon your soul, take heed, the truth is at work, even when it lurks unseen. You need not force its revelation. You need not compel them to acknowledge it. That burden is not yours to bear. Your duty is to remain steadfast in the light of truth. Your task is to resist their seductive deceptions. Your mission is to be patient, for the truth will always prevail in the end. And when that moment arrives, when the narcissist is finally unmasked, brace yourself for their reaction of sheer disbelief. They will have woven a narrative so intricate that they convince themselves this day would never dawn. They will have constructed their very identity on the delusion of being too cunning, too formidable, too invulnerable. However, reality is unyielding, and regardless of how fiercely they resist it, they will ultimately have to confront the one thing they dread the most, the truth. This is where genuine justice begins. One of the most significant misunderstandings people have when dealing with narcissists is the idea that kindness, patience, or logic will eventually lead them to see reason. The belief that if you love them enough, reason with them sufficiently, or extend enough grace, they will change is misguided. Narcissism does not operate in the same realm as a person who seeks truth, humility, or self-awareness. They are not interested in reconciliation. Their focus is on control. When someone is so deeply entrenched in their own delusion, it often seems that God allows them to face the full repercussions of their actions before they can even begin to acknowledge the reality of their situation. This principle is repeatedly illustrated in both Scripture and life. Take Pharaoh in the book of Exodus, for example. He was faced with the truth. Moses presented him with irrefutable evidence, direct messages from God, and numerous opportunities to abandon his arrogance. Yet, what was the outcome? His heart became hardened. He doubled down on his stance. He refused to accept reality, even as his entire kingdom suffered due to his pride. It was only when absolute devastation occurred, when he lost what was most dear to him, that he finally gave in. Even then, his remorse was not sincere. He quickly reneged on his promise. This is characteristic of a narcissist. They do not respond to gentle correction. They fail to reflect when softly confronted about their harmful behavior. Instead, they entrench themselves further. They intensify their manipulation. They become increasingly aggressive, more deceitful, and more resolute in preserving their facade. Consequently, God often permits them to descend deeper into their own self-destruction until they have no one left to blame but themselves. It is a disturbing sight to behold. If you have ever been close to a narcissist, you recognize the pattern. They test limits, take advantage of others' patience, and push the boundaries of what they can get away with, seemingly facing no repercussions for a time. They navigate life without consequence, creating chaos around them while consistently evading accountability. However, this situation is fleeting, because what ultimately occurs is that when someone persistently disregards the truth, ignores every warning, and manipulates without restraint, they inevitably lead themselves to their own ruin. God allows this not out of malice, but out of justice and necessity. Sometimes, the only way a narcissist will even begin to contemplate change is when their world crumbles around them. This collapse often occurs in unexpected ways, such as losing the very relationships they believe they could control indefinitely. Perhaps they weave their webs of manipulation a bit too tightly, only to find themselves ensnared in their own deceit. Perhaps the lies they spun so effortlessly come crashing down in a way they never foresaw. The very power they once wielded over others may turn against them. A dark twist of fate. The methods may differ, but the underlying truth remains. A higher force allows them to crumble beneath the weight of their own treachery. This is not merely a matter of punishment. It is a harrowing revelation. For a narcissist, reality is a relentless adversary. They have constructed their existence upon a foundation of falsehoods, a delusion of superiority, a belief in their right to dominate, and an illusion of immunity from consequences. As long as they cling to this mirage, change remains an impossibility. So, the divine allows them to stride forward, to push boundaries, to bask in their own perceived invincibility, until the inevitable reckoning arrives. The structure they built with such arrogance will shatter, leaving them face to face with the stark truth they have long evaded. It is in this moment of despair that the potential for transformation flickers. For not every narcissist will remain ensnared in darkness forever. Some, when confronted with the undeniable exposure of their true selves, will finally fracture. The interest lies not solely in judgment. There is a deeper yearning for redemption, Yet, redemption cannot emerge without the harsh light of truth, and sometimes that truth can only be grasped when every other avenue has been. If you find yourself observing a narcissist flourish in their web of lies, and you ponder why divine justice remains silent, take heed, the dark clock is ticking. They are not evading retribution. They are unwittingly striding toward it, oblivious to the shadows closing in. When the reckoning arrives, it will be inescapable. For there is one thing that haunts narcissists more than anything else: exposure. They dread the unraveling of their carefully spun facade. They tremble at the thought of being seen for the monsters they truly are. The moment will come when their manipulations falter, when their polished veneer shatters, and they can no longer cloak themselves in deceit. When that moment strikes, they will face a grim choice: to plunge deeper into their own abyss, or to confront the terrifying truth they have long evaded. Not all will make the right choice, but for those who do, it may mark the first step toward something genuine, a flicker of true humility, a glimmer of redemption. Yet for those who resist, the descent will persist, and that is a fate you need not intervene in. You are not their savior. You need not soften the blow of their impending doom. That is the work of God, and He knows precisely what He is doing. Your role is to remain aligned with the truth, to resist being drawn into their illusion, and to have faith that true divine justice will arrive in due time, as no one can escape reality indefinitely. When God determines the moment has come, the downfall is total. One of the most notable characteristics of a narcissist is their complete refusal to accept responsibility for their actions. They excel at evading blame, altering narratives, and portraying themselves as either the hero or the victim in every situation. Regardless of the chaos they cause or the harm they inflict, they always have a justification. Someone else is perpetually at fault. The more entrenched they become in this mindset, the further they drift from truth, personal growth, and, ultimately, grace. However, the important thing to remember is that God is not deceived by the narcissist's act. While people may fall for their manipulations, their carefully constructed lies, and their selective storytelling, they might even convince themselves of their own justification, but God sees through it all. He is not influenced by appearances, false humility, or insincere apologies meant solely to regain control. He understands what lies in a person's heart, and does not allow unchecked arrogance to go unaddressed. Eventually, God confronts the narcissist with the truth they have spent their lives evading. This confrontation doesn't always manifest as a dramatic public exposure, although it can at times. Occasionally, the revelation is quick, unmistakable, and deeply embarrassing. Their falsehoods are illuminated, their meticulously crafted persona crumbles. The individuals they once manipulated finally see through the facade, leaving the narcissist in a state of panic, unable to rationalize the undeniable truth. More frequently, however, the confrontation is internal. It unfolds slowly, methodically, and is inescapable. It is the gradual acknowledgement that, despite their manipulations, they cannot deceive God. That regardless of their denials, they are aware of the truth deep down. This realization is profoundly frightening for someone whose life has been built on lies. The human mind, no matter how formidable, cannot evade the truth indefinitely. While the conscience may be numbed, it is never completely obliterated. And God, in His infinite wisdom, knows precisely when and how to touch upon it. He understands when to let the narcissist face their own ruin, when to strip away distractions, and when to eliminate their enablers, until only the undeniable burden of reality remains. But here's where it takes a darker turn when a narcissist is faced with the stark light of truth. They can respond in one of two chilling ways. The first, though exceedingly rare, is a haunting repentance, a gut-wrenching acknowledgement of their own shattered self. This requires a humility that most narcissists have evaded for a lifetime, a willingness to confront the grotesque facade. It means tearing down the illusion, piece by agonizing piece, a process that can feel like a descent into madness. Some may find the courage to do this, recognizing they've reached the end of their own twisted path, finally surrendering to a force far greater than their fragile ego. Yet for the majority, the second response is far more sinister. They double down, fiercely resisting the truth with every ounce of their being. They rewrite their own history, weaving a dark narrative where they remain the eternal victim, the misunderstood savant, the one perpetually wronged. They lash out at anyone daring to hold them accountable, obliterating relationships rather than facing their own failings. In their desperate bid to maintain the illusion, they isolate themselves, retreating into a shadowy realm of self-deception. And it is then that a higher power, in a move that may seem cruel to outsiders, delivers a grim justice. He grants them their deepest desire to plunge further into their own delusion, to bear the crushing weight of a life built on lies. He allows them to believe their own fabrications until those very lies become an inescapable prison, a dark cell from which there is no escape. This is not merely a form of punishment. It embodies one of the most essential spiritual truths. You cannot construct a life on a base of falsehood and expect it to endure. Ultimately, everything collapses. A narcissist who refuses to confront the truth will ultimately be engulfed by their own lies. Their relationships become empty, their achievements feel insignificant, their manipulations lose their power, and they are left with nothing but themselves. This is where the true moment of reckoning occurs, because when everything else is stripped away, the power, the admiration, the false sense of superiority, what remains? Just a person, a broken, vulnerable, deeply insecure individual who has spent their entire life fleeing from their own identity. In that moment, they must choose: will they finally confront reality, or will they persist on the path of destruction, sinking deeper into a reality of their own creation? Some will awaken, some will realize they are not as invulnerable as they once thought. Some will crumble under the burden of their own decisions, and finally yield to something greater. However, many will not. Many will continue to fight a battle they cannot win, descending further into isolation, resentment, and emptiness. Because here is the reality: God will reveal the narcissist for who they truly are. He will show them their true selves, but whether they choose to accept it is entirely up to them. If you have been entangled with a narcissist, witnessing them evade the repercussions of their actions time and again, do not let yourself be fooled. God is not absent. He is not indifferent to your suffering. He is at work in ways that may remain hidden from your view, and when the moment of reckoning arrives, it will be unmistakable. No one, no matter how cunning or manipulative, can elude the truth indefinitely. When God deems it necessary, that truth will emerge, unavoidable and stark. One of the most tragic elements of the narcissistic mindset is its stubborn refusal to accept correction. A narcissist shuns guidance and wisdom, for wisdom demands humility, something they have spent their lives evading. Instead, they create a fragile internal universe where they believe themselves to be above instruction, the enlightened one, the misunderstood genius, a victim of those who fail to recognize their brilliance. Yet, this delusion is a perilous snare. It embodies the very essence of pride that precedes a fall. When God chooses to act, he brings the narcissist down in a way that cannot be overlooked. However, this humbling often unfolds in ways we might not anticipate. It may not manifest as a grand, public disgrace, though it sometimes does. It may not always result in an immediate loss of status, wealth, or influence, though that can occur as well. The sadness lies in the realization that the truth will come, but the path to that moment is often fraught with pain and disillusionment. No, the most profound form of humbling is something far deeper, something far more frightening for the narcissist. It is the moment they can no longer escape their own emptiness. A narcissist relies heavily on external validation. Their entire identity hinges on how others view them. They craft intricate personas, meticulously curate their image, and do whatever it takes to maintain control over their public perception. Yet, in his infinite wisdom, God knows precisely how to dismantle that illusion. He understands how to remove the distractions, the enablers, the false sources of comfort. He knows how to lead the narcissist to a place where the only thing left to face is the stark reality of who they truly are. And that moment is terrifying because, deep down, beneath the arrogance, the manipulation, and the carefully constructed facade, lies a truth the narcissist desperately tries to avoid. They are empty, they are hollow. They have spent their lives erecting a facade, and for a while, it seemed to work. But when that facade crumbles, when the applause fades, when those who once idolized them turn away, what remains is a person lost, unsure of who they are beyond the performance. This is where God's humbling is most profound. He does not merely strip away the narcissist's external success. He compels them to confront the internal turmoil they have fought so hard to ignore. He allows them to stew in the aftermath of their own decisions, letting them feel the crushing burden of a life constructed on deceit. In that chilling moment, they are confronted with a choice to persist in their denial or to finally confront the grim reality. Some will fight against it. Some will cling desperately to their comforting illusions. They will lash out in fury, casting blame like shadows, doing everything within their power to evade accountability. Yet, a rare few, very few, will shatter, and within that fracture lies a flicker of hope. True humility does not arise from being commanded to be humble. It does not stem from lectures or warnings, nor from the cold embrace of logic. It emerges from reaching the abyss of oneself, where the only escape is to surrender completely, and that is what the dark forces desire. Not mere destruction for its own sake, nor humiliation for the sake of cruelty, but transformation. They humble the narcissist not out of malice, but out of a twisted sense of justice and mercy, for as long as they remain ensnared in their delusions, they are bound. They are slaves to their own egos, prisoners of their own pride. Thus, God takes the necessary steps. He breaks them to set them free. However, it's important to recognize that freedom is a choice. Some will turn it down, others will further harden their hearts, unwilling to acknowledge their faults or their own brokenness. For these individuals, life becomes a cycle of self-imposed suffering, an endless struggle to maintain control in a world that will never conform to their desires. Yet for those who ultimately surrender, who release their desperate need to be right, to be admired, or to be worshipped, there is a chance for redemption. There lies the opportunity to rebuild, to transform into something genuine, something complete. Therefore, if you have observed a narcissist continuing on their unchecked path, and if you have questioned whether they will ever face the repercussions of their actions, know this: God is patient, but He is not apathetic. He sees and understands. When the moment arrives, He will humble them in a way that cannot be overlooked. No one, not even the most obstinate, the most arrogant, or the most self-deceived, can evade the truth indefinitely. One of the most enduring truths in human history is that deception cannot persist forever. It may last for a while. It may even appear to thrive. But ultimately, reality will prevail. A lie is fundamentally unstable. It demands constant upkeep and reinforcement, and no one relies on lies more than a narcissist. Their entire perspective is constructed on deception, both of others and of themselves. They are not just deceitful with others, they are also deceiving themselves. They construct a facade of superiority, invulnerability, and righteousness, and they work relentlessly to maintain that facade. However, God, in His wisdom, knows how to reveal every falsehood, regardless of how deeply it is hidden or how fiercely it is protected. The process of revelation is not always swift. It is often a gradual disintegration of the narcissist's fabricated reality. They may think they are immune to repercussions. They may believe that through manipulation, cleverness, or sheer determination, they can reshape reality to fit their wishes. Yet, no one, regardless of their intelligence or power, can manipulate reality indefinitely. Sooner or later, the inconsistencies become too pronounced. Eventually, the facade crumbles. Reflect on the biblical principle that what is concealed will eventually come to light. This is not merely a moral assertion. It is a psychological and existential reality. No one can exist in constant falsehood without it eroding them from within. The narcissist feels invulnerable because they control the narrative, surround themselves with enablers, and have crafted a story in which they are untouchable. The narcissist perceives themselves as invulnerable because they dictate the narrative, have surrounded themselves with supporters, and have crafted a story where they are perpetually the hero, or when needed, the victim. However, God allows the truth to surface in unexpected ways. Sometimes this happens through circumstances. The narcissist, in their hubris, believes they can manipulate every outcome, every individual, and every system, and for a while they may achieve this. But then, without warning, a shift occurs. A trusted ally turns against them, a meticulously planned scheme falls apart, or a hidden betrayal is revealed. The very individuals they thought they had under their control begin to see through the facade, and the foundations of their carefully built empire start to collapse. In that instant, they confront something they have spent their lives evading: the realization that they are not as powerful as they believed. At other times, God reveals their true nature through their own words and actions. A narcissist depends on their skill to manipulate how others perceive them. They think they can talk their way out of any predicament, charm their way into any opportunity, and evade accountability for their misdeeds. Yet, the flaw in deception is that it demands perfect recall. In their eagerness to control every narrative, the narcissist ultimately contradicts themselves. They become ensnared in their own web of deceit. What once appeared as effortless charm begins to seem empty and disingenuous. Once, they were the center of attention, their every word hanging in the air like a spell. But now, whispers of doubt creep in, and in that chilling moment, the narcissist is gripped by a sensational, long-forgotten fear. A fear that the carefully woven facade is unraveling, that the shadows are revealing the truth. Yet, the most harrowing way the divine exposes a narcissist is through the chaos within. Their deepest dread is not the world discovering their lies. It is the confrontation with their own hollow core. Beneath the grand illusions and the meticulously crafted image lies a void, a fracture that they dread to acknowledge. They are paralyzed by the thought of facing their own inadequacies, their own worthlessness, and so they flee. They flee from introspection, from accountability, from any circumstance that might force them to confront the dark reality of who they are. But the divine knows how to ensnare them. It knows how to lead them to a desolate place where escape is impossible, alone with their thoughts, stripped of distractions, admirers, and scapegoats. The silence becomes a suffocating weight, and the truth crashes down like a storm. Here, the narcissist stands at a sinister crossroads. Exposure is a torment. It is a shattering of their carefully constructed world. Yet, within that agony lies a flicker of opportunity, for once the truth is laid bare, they are faced with a choice that could either condemn them or set them free. Individuals have a choice. They can either recognize their situation, repent, and pursue change, or they can cling to their illusions, sinking further into self-destruction. Some will opt for the latter path. They will deny reality, lash out, and try to reconstruct their crumbling empire with even more deceit and manipulation. However, a few, though very few, will reach a breaking point, and within that breaking lies hope. God does not reveal truths to bring about destruction. Rather, He reveals them to facilitate healing. This is the profound paradox of exposure. For the narcissist, it may feel like punishment, a harsh removal of everything they cherish. Yet, in truth, it presents a chance for healing and transformation. In that breaking moment, there is hope because God's intention is not to destroy, but to heal. This paradox of exposure feels like a harsh punishment, a painful stripping away of their most valued possessions. However, it is ultimately an act of mercy, for as long as they remain ensnared in their own falsehoods, they cannot change, grow, or truly experience the richness of life, love, and meaning. Exposure is not the conclusion. It is merely the beginning, provided they are open to it. So, if you have ever questioned whether a narcissist will confront the truth or be held accountable, remember this: God sees, God knows, and in His own time, He will reveal every hidden thing. No one, not even the most cunning, the most ruthless, or the most self-deceived, can escape the truth forever. Narcissists often see themselves as invincible, convinced they can manipulate others endlessly, control outcomes through sheer will, and reshape reality to fit their whims. For a while, they may find success in this delusion. Their arrogance appears unbreakable, their schemes seem flawless. Yet, there is one force they can never bend to their will, one that remains beyond their grasp: time. Time serves as a harbinger of truth. It is the ultimate equalizer, the relentless revealer. No matter how meticulously a narcissist has crafted their facade, how skillfully they have hidden their flaws, or how many they have misled into believing their charade, time will inevitably wear down all illusions. The truth carries weight. It possesses a resilience that no deception can endure indefinitely. This is why narcissists are perpetually in motion, always scheming, always controlling. They must be, for the moment they pause, the moment they allow reality to unfold, the truth begins to seep in. They are forever adjusting their narratives, striving to keep others from noticing the fractures beneath the surface. But the harsh reality remains: no one can outrun time forever. No one can maintain a false reality indefinitely, and in His infinite wisdom, God knows exactly how to wield time to bring down those who elevate themselves above others. It's a tragic irony that a narcissist, by their very nature, is someone who refuses to grow. Growth demands self-awareness. It calls for humility and the courage to confront oneself honestly and embrace change. Yet, a narcissist resists this at every opportunity. They are convinced of their own superiority, believing they are already enlightened and beyond reproach, while others evolve, learn from their missteps, and construct lives rooted in truth. The narcissist remains trapped in stagnation. This stagnation carries heavy consequences. Unbeknownst to them, their refusal to change seals their fate, leaving them behind as the world moves on. The very strategies that once granted them power become predictable, and the charisma that once enchanted others turns empty. Those they once manipulated begin to outgrow them, seeing through their facade, and ultimately walking away. In their desperation, they intensify their manipulations, clinging to their illusions with a fervor that only deepens their isolation. Yet, this is a futile endeavor. As time relentlessly reveals their true nature, many narcissists face a tragic decline. They may enjoy fleeting moments of triumph, periods where they seem invincible, wielding power and influence, but gradually, the tide shifts, their lies catch up with them, and those they have wronged start to share their stories. The admiration they once commanded morphs into suspicion. As their carefully constructed world begins to crumble, they often find themselves alone, grappling with the reality of their choices. The irony is that in their quest for control, they have only succeeded in creating their own desolation. Their deceptions begin to close in around them. The victims of their treachery start to share their stories. The admiration that once surrounded them morphs into a thick fog of suspicion, and as their carefully constructed facade begins to shatter, they often find themselves isolated, stripped of the loyal followers who once clung to their every word, bereft of the power they wielded with reckless abandon. Some narcissists attempt to reinvent themselves, seeking refuge among a new crowd, blissfully unaware of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. For a fleeting moment, this charade may succeed, yet the insidious truth remains: they have not transformed. They have merely masked the festering core of their being, and thus they are doomed to repeat their destructive patterns. They alienate the new souls just as they did the old, and with each cycle, the task of finding fresh prey becomes increasingly daunting, the shadows of their past growing ever longer. And here lies the cruel irony, the very fate the narcissist dreads most. Being unmasked for the monster they truly are is an inevitability that time guarantees. Time does not simply reveal, it devours illusions, demanding a reckoning. In this relentless march toward humility, the narcissist confronts their darkest trial. Some will fight against the encroaching darkness until their last breath. They will deny reality even as their world crumbles into dust. They will rage against the dying light, hurling blame and venom at anyone daring to hold them accountable. And in their frantic struggle, they will seal their own doom. A select few will ultimately reach their breaking point. They will arrive at a stage where they can no longer ignore the truth. And in that instant, an opportunity arises. While time is unyielding, it also offers mercy. It provides us with a chance to learn, to seek forgiveness, and to change if we choose to do so. However, we must recognize that it is not our responsibility to force this process. We do not need to pursue the narcissist to reveal their true nature, or to ensure they face the consequences of their actions. That burden is not ours to bear. God has already initiated the mechanisms of truth. Time itself is working in our favor. If we take a step back and allow events to unfold as they should, we will realize that no one, regardless of their power or deceit, can evade the repercussions of their own choices. So, if you have ever felt that justice is delayed or questioned whether a narcissist will be held accountable, keep this in mind: truth is patient. It does not rush or impose itself. It simply waits. Ultimately, every lie will crumble under its own weight, and time will always have the final word.